Hey guys, and welcome to Little Blackbird 91, guys. Today, about John Boyega versus Idris Elba. I think this is one of the greatest conversations around at the time because of the nature of the conversation. We're talking about race, we're talking about being black, we're talking about how do we handle our current society and what goes on at this particular time and moment. How do we go forth and prosper? How do we handle Hollywood and our upward trajectory where we find ourselves in more rooms and more spaces to influence the conversations that go on in those spaces? Just recently, Idris Elba put out a tweet which John Boyega obviously reacted to in another tweet. And I think it's really important. Again, I really love John Boyega. I think he's amazing. And I'm going to be honest with you, in this argument between John Boyega and Idris Elba, I'm siding with John Boyega. And I'll tell you why. I'm first of all biased because I like war. This is why I got the camera on today. I like war. I like to fight in different ways, not necessarily to fight fist by fist, but I like to fight for a cause. And what I see with John Boyega is I can identify with the nature of the man he is. And maybe that's the African in us. Maybe that's the pride in us from our African heritage. But, we don't go down without a fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want to go down without a fight. And I see that in John Boyega. In fact, I kind of see the Malcolm X and the Martin Luther King approach to race here with Idris Elba and John Boyega's kind of conversation. I see them parallels in the way that they wanted to handle situations. In some sense, if you talk about people's particular reactions, some people fight, some people flight, some people flop, some people free, some people befriend. If I'm looking at how Idris Elba is handling this race conversation at this particular moment, he would more lean towards befriending the situation, and we get angry at that, right? Just like people who are, unfortunately, without saying it, go through sexual violence. When people say, "Why did you befriend the person?" Because they were fearful and they wanted to preserve themselves, right? So befriending, and another person who did befriending here is Will Smith. Will Smith, not necessarily to white people, but if you listen to his autobiography in the book Will, he talks about how he befriended his father in the way of playing the comedic act in order to assuade the violence that would come towards his mother. That was his way of fighting. He didn't know how to fight and get aggressive like his brother Harry. And so I think we see the same thing here with Idris Elba. We see a befriending rather than an outright attack. Whereas John Boyega is somebody whose reaction to an attack is to immediately fight, and many people can identify with the fight because it's an obvious response of resistance and rebellion, which a lot of people actually don't even do themselves. A lot of people live vicariously through people like John Boyega, and because when it comes to racism and stuff, they wish they could behave like John Boyega. A lot of people do. And they want to be the John Boyega by saying, what I mean by that is they want to be the fighter that when something happens to them, they fight immediately. But the reality is a lot of us choose different ways to handle situations. Some of us fight, some of us actually freeze, some of us flop, some of us befriend. Okay. I can't remember what F. There's another F as well. And I've forgotten it when it comes to this. But, there are different ways that people handle traumatic events and situations. And being black in a Western society and culture, and this part of the hemisphere, is traumatic. You grow up knowing you are black and different, and you can't run away from that truth that you are black, and that is it. You can't run away from that truth in this hemisphere. You want to run away from that? You go to Africa. And when you go to Africa, you'll find there's also deductions there. You will end up being labeled by what tribe you come from, what area you come from. As human beings, we do it consistently. We put ourselves in categories. So you can't erode and say, I don't want to be in any category. You're going to be in a category. Whether it's black today or whether it's your tribe tomorrow, you're going to be in a category, right? But let's look at some of the comments that Idris Elba actually put out. Before we do, like this video, share it, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate, guys. Stay locked and stay loaded. We're going to hopefully dive into a really good conversation today about this subject. And if you're returning to the channel, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Stay hydrated because the sweets out there, they're a little bit hot, okay? And don't forget, click on the bell button for the notification of the uploads. Let's drop a little intro and let's get the conversation going for you guys. I want to hear your opinions in the chat as well. Thank you for joining us today. Little black, you know what time it is. 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 Fantastic. Let's look at these tweets that were put on by John Boyega and Idris Elba, because I think this was really important to kind of give us a little bit more understanding. Okay, so these are some of the tweets I was put on. I would have gone to the original pages, but it's just easier going through this, right? In fact, let me see if I can get the original tweet. I want to get the original tweet that John Boyega and Idris actually put up, right? I started liking a lot of these things, boy. Where is the original tweet that I had of Idris? There's a lot of the things. Oh, did I not put it in there? Okay, let me just find it for you guys. So I'm gonna find the original tweet for you guys that he actually said, because I don't want to misquote, and I want to be able to break down exactly what he actually said. And I think it will make a lot more sense when we start breaking it down in a way that will make it very, very clear. Okay. So there's one there, fantastic, and I want the original tweet as well. Okay, so let's see what the original tweet is. Okay, so I don't think I have one. I think everyone just kind of copied the tweet. All right, cool. Let's go to this then. Okay, so let's go to this then. Here we go. So Idris Elba says he's no longer referring to himself as a black actor because the label put him in a box, and an obsession with race can hinder aspirations and growth. That was what he said, right? He says that these things can hinder him in a way that boxes him into what he can do, in a sense, right? And what he's allowed to do. In fact, I've got a little one here. I want to be able to bring this to you. So he says no longer refers to himself as a black actor because the label puts him in a box. Speaking to Esquire UK in recent interview, sorry, I haven't shared it there. If we spent half the time not talking about the differences but the similarities between us, the entire planet would shift in a way we deal with each other. He says, although racism is very, very real, it's only as powerful as you allow it to be. I stopped describing myself as a black actor when I realized they put me in a box. We got to grow. We've got to. Our skin is no more than that. It's just skin, rant over. Now, there is some truth to what he's saying here, and I want to be very, very clear that I differentiate myself from Idris Elba. I'm not saying he's completely wrong. What I want to say is I differentiate myself in terms of, I think there's more nuance that could be added, and unfortunately, they quoted this part of his interview. There might have been more that actually was more prominent to what he was actually saying, right? So I want to be very, very clear. I hear what he's saying, but I disagree, and I agree with John Boyega because he's put the emphasis in the wrong place. And I remember there was a tweet. There was a video by Morgan Freeman. I remember at the time I disagreed with it. I was like, "What kind of take is this?" Let's have a look. I'll show you what I mean by when I said this. Here we go.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it.
Okay.
I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it.
Now, I don't know about you guys, okay, but not talking about racism has never stopped racism. If you know anything, not talking about slavery didn't stop us being enslaved, okay? And I want to make a very strong stand on this aspect. Not speaking about something is sweeping it underneath the carpet. It does not solve your issues, right? We can talk about fight, free, flop, befriend, all that kind of stuff, but not talking about a pain point does not solve an issue. I don't even prescribe that in relationships. Oh, well, the person is mistreating you or has a history of mistreating you, but don't speak about it. It's never helped anybody. Not talking about it has never helped anybody. Let me tell you who it helps. It helps the actual abuser, and it helps the very person who actually did the heinous crime. And in fact, this is the same rhetoric that we use sometimes, a lot of times in church when somebody has abused somebody, either sexually, financially, mentally, emotionally, in church. When someone gets abused in church, it's the same language. Don't say anything. Like, let's not, you know what? Like, it goes away if you don't say anything. Like, don't open your mouth and cause a ruckus. We don't want you to cause too much mess. Like, forgive and move on. But the Jews are not letting us forget. The Jews are not letting us forget. And rightly so. Why should they let us forget? The Jews are not letting us forget. Why are we trying to let them forget? When I say forget in this instance, what I'm talking about is we are currently still living in a state of experiencing slavery in a different form. We're still experiencing the power structures that are existing in our society right now that disenfranchise. Wow, English. Disenfranchises us as Black people. I finally got there. You know what I mean? So we can't not speak about it because it's still happening. You can't pretend as if it's not happening by not talking about it. Right? Okay? So if we're going to talk about how we're going to solve this issue, not speaking about it and pretending it doesn't exist, which it just made a very clear distinction. I want to be very fair to him. He did say that racism is still very real today. So I want to give him that fairness. But not talking about it and not thinking, oh, do you know what? If I don't believe racism exists, it won't exist. Yeah. If I don't believe it's going to rain, I won't get wet. Do you understand what you're saying? If I don't believe it's going to rain, I'm not going to get wet. Whether I believe it or not makes no difference. It's what's happening. I'm going to get wet. Okay? And in the same form of fashion, whether I believe I'm Black or not makes no difference because the very people outside of me believe I'm Black. And even if they don't call me the name Black, how they view me is different. In fact, that's a human nature situation. The only problem being labeled Black is the fact that it comes with a power structure accosted to it. There's a power structure accosted to it. There's a societal pressure or expectation given to it. There's a prejudice. There's a discrimination that is attached to being Black. That's the only problem we have. It's the negatives that are attached to being Black. Ordinarily, we are Black. Of course, we know about how race was instituted into our society. We would have never called it Black, but you'd have called it something else. You'd have said that person from this tribe, from overseas, coming over is different to us, and they behave different to us. They have different customs because even within a country, let's take my country, Ghana, we have several different tribes. I say several is even being generous. We have many different tribes and they operate in different ways and have different rules. And the fear is when you see someone from a different tribe, what are they going to do? Because at this point in time, we're going to have some problems. And so there's always going to be a box you're going to be boxed into. Okay? I want you to understand that. So, there's an overriding box, of course, but there's always going to be many categories within that box. You can't run away from it. Not saying that you've ascended Blackness is not going to make you not be Black anymore. You're going to be Black. You're going to be Black. Right? If you want to change the name from being Black, call it what you want to call it. I hear what you're saying, Elena. I do hear what you're saying. But even if you change it, you're going to be boxed. There is no such thing as I'm calling myself a human. There's no such thing. There's no such, because you have to label somebody something. That is what we do as human beings. We categorize people. When we're in UK, we say, that guy is from Liverpool. Or that guy is from thingy. Right? We might call him John, yeah, or whatever. And then when it gets down to nitty gritty of the conversation, right, we end up speaking about where they come from. You ask questions when you're getting to know somebody. Oh, but where are you from? Oh, what area are you from? Oh, you from the Bay? Oh, okay. You from Cali? Okay, cool. You ask those questions because you are identified even by where you're from. You cannot get away from categories. So we can change it from being Black, no problem. Change it to something else, right? Change it to something else, and I guarantee you we'll have the same issues. There will be categorizations because there's categorizations by elitism when we talk about class. There's categorization by gender. There's categorization by race. Okay, the issue that we have behind this is the intolerability. Oh, my English is failing me today. Is the intolerance? Let me just say that because I can't say intolerability. There we go. Intolerability that we have that comes with that, and also the negative and the power structures that come with that. Again, those are the problems we have. Being black or being called black isn't an issue. The issue is what's attached to being black and how the outsiders treat me when I'm black. That's our issue. And this is why I identify with John Boyega's point, because what we're doing is, if I change my label and I'm not black, then they'll stop treating me as such. No. We need to change the people that are actually in power and their mindset, because if we don't, we'll always be other to them. It will always mean you're always going to be other to them. So we can change it from being about race, but because we're humans and we're fallen in nature, this is why Christ, you know what? This is why Jesus is needed. Because you know what? Even the Jews suffered this prejudice. We had Peter rolling with Jesus for 3 years. I want you to understand, for 3 years, Peter rolled with Jesus. For 3 years, saw miracles, saw this, saw that. And several times we saw Peter's prejudice come in. When Jesus was talking to the woman by the well, and the boys came through. Like, why are you talking to that woman by the well, bro? She's like ain't she a Canaanite? Why are you talking to a Canaanite for? You know they don't serve the gods that we serve. Instant classification. Peter later on, when Peter's dining with the Gentiles being those who are not Jews, and they were chilling and vibing, right? And they were sitting down and eating food and exchanging words and having laughter and banter, right? The other Jews came in, and Peter, Peter, it was Peter that, suddenly decided to discard the Gentiles and run away and be like, oh, I don't associate with those people, I don't associate with those people. And Paul had to pull him up and say, boy, if you don't stop messing around, what you mean? Jesus didn't die for this so that you can start creating these boundaries. That no, Jews, Gentiles are one in Christ. So classism, grouping, distinctions, they exist because we're humans, and we do this because we group ourselves. So regardless if we call ourselves black or not, you are still going to suffer it. Look, if today they make a rule and say you can't call anybody black, we will call ourselves something else. You'll call yourselves the guys from the Bay. Okay? All right? You call yourself the guy from Cali. You call yourself something else. You know what I mean? We'll class ourselves as something else because you want to be belonging. And this is what's really important. And I love that, Becca. Yes, we're fighting a sociology idea. It's embedded in us. We are social creatures, so it's embedded in us. Unfortunately, So back to obviously John Boyega and Idris Elba situation. So let's bring it back there, because I want to bring it back there in terms of what was actually said. I wanted to say, so back to what you were saying. Listen here. He says obviously he no longer refers to himself as a black actor. Now let's break that down. What does he actually mean by the black actor situation? Because you know. I want to make that very, very clear. Okay, so TY said, "I work in corporate America and I'm proud to be black, but I don't want to be identified as a black employee." I love this. Okay, I love this. Okay, I love this point. So I want to make this very, very clear. Your job does not include your face. I don't buy you, TY, because you're black. I buy you because you have business sense. But when you're acting, the race becomes important because oftentimes we're playing a character. And let's say, for instance, Harry Potter. There's a book already on Harry Potter. I don't want to see a black Harry Potter. I want to be very honest with you. I don't want to see a black James Bond. I'm sorry. I don't want to see it. James Bond is white to me. If that's how he's described in the book, let's keep it as such. A lot of these films are based on books already that person's written. I don't want you to change the race. I'll be honest with you. Things like superheroes can be changed because, to be honest, they don't exist. But even then, I like to keep some certain lines. If Spider-Man has always been white, I don't need to see a black Spider-Man. I'll be honest with you, I don't need to see it. If the original Spider-Man was always white, I don't need to see it, right? But we can flex with that. I can understand, right? I don't need to see a white Daredevil, a black Daredevil. Sorry, I don't need to see a black Thor. I don't need to see a black Loki. I don't need to see a black Hulk. I don't want to see these things. I don't need to, because that is not where I need to have the representation. Now, can we make new superheroes that are black? Fantastic. Let's go. Let's go. Create new black superheroes. We don't need to change the existing roles as they are. I like, I don't want it. You know. I don't want to see that kind of stuff. So, for instance, the James Bond role, the guy's white. Why? I don't want to see a black James Bond. Love John Boyega. Love Damson Idris. Love you know, love you know, love Idris Elba too. I just don't need to see you as a black James Bond. You want to be a villain? Be a villain. I don't need to see you in that. Okay. All right. So I think I want representation. I want representation, but I also want us to, because again we're still coexisting in a white space, right? So again, your role, TY, and I appreciate this. You're absolutely right. We don't want to be labeled a black employee. So you're absolutely right. But your race is not important to your job that you're actually doing. Your skin tone isn't important to the job you're actually doing. If you're selling computers, your race isn't important as such. I mean, there's, of course, you know, it can play a role in it. But the reality is, you don't want to be labeled a woman either. You don't want to be labeled a woman employee either, because it's not important to the category of the job that you're actually doing. What you're doing as a person is you're selling something, or you're working in corporate. So you don't need that. You don't need to label yourself as that. You know. Um, so that's what I would say. Now, if there are character roles where the race is ambiguous and it's not important to the actual storyline, then by all means put a black person in there. Go for it. Got no problems with that, right? Got no problems with that. But let me just show you something. Let me show you something. This was so interesting, right? Let me show you something that was so interesting. Okay. And the reason why I said I agree with John Boyega, and I'll show you John Boyega's tweet in a second or two. I haven't really showed you that. I haven't done a good job of that. I should have showed you that so you actually knew what the two were. I want to show you this. This is Chris Green. I don't know who he is, but he's obviously blue ticked and he's obviously talking about acting, right? Let me just show you this as well. Chris Green says, I stopped calling myself a black actor a long time ago. Soon as I did, the auditions stopped coming in. Love that you're shining light on this, man. Okay, fantastic. You called yourself no longer a black actor, and what happened? The roles stopped coming in. So not calling yourself a black actor didn't solve the issue. That's my point. This is why John Boyega is absolutely right about his position. You're putting the emphasis on you changing, and you don't realize you cannot change. You are still black. And what Chris Green is telling us right there and then is he's celebrating Idris Elba, saying about how great he's right, he's bringing light to this. But the reality is he's not deep what he just said. He hasn't deeped it. Okay, he hasn't deeped it. What he hasn't deeped is I stopped calling myself a black actor a long time ago. As soon as I did, the audition stopped coming in. Love that you're shining light on this. Well, when you stopped doing a black actor, you didn't get no you didn't get no auditions. You didn't get no auditions, sir. So you're actually proving the point, which is they still see you as what? Black, and they still see you as what? Lower than. That's why we fight. You're seen as lower than. That's why when you stop calling yourself black, you didn't get no auditions, because you ain't no longer serving the purpose of what they want you for. So the fight isn't you changing you being black. The fight is you changing what the other people think about us as black people. That's your fight. Your fight isn't with changing you. You know, it's like when white people say, well, if he just complied with the police officer, he wouldn't be killed. No. Let's talk about the people who are in authority and power. If they didn't do what they did, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. I mean, of course, there are some people that move mad, and we respectfully, that's them. But a lot of these cases, it's always about, and again, and this is something, and we'll talk about this another time. Some of this also plays with women and men roles too, in general. All right. So any woman out there, exactly what I'm talking about. When it comes to cases like the big R, a lot of times men move with mythological reasoning. Well, if the woman hadn't done X, Y, and Z, this wouldn't happen. If she didn't do this, wouldn't X, Y, and Z happen. But the reality is that's the same thing that white people do to black people. Right? When we start victim shaming. Now, of course, there are certain things that won't help and aid your case in a situation like that. But I'm saying in majority of cases, we end up blaming the victim. And you're trying to change you as a victim, trying to change you, hoping that when you change you, it will change the person abusing you. They're still going to abuse you. They're still going to abuse the power they're going to do of you. Right? Yes, Alive Bod. And that's the reality. What we're seeing between John Boyega and Idris is individualism versus community. What John Boyega has suffered. brothers and sisters, John Boyega has suffered. We've seen it with Star Wars. We saw how he went on the front lines when it came to the marches in UK. We've seen how he's spoken against white supremacy and those in power. He's actually suffered for this because he's lost roles for this. You know what I mean? So this is not somebody who's just talking out their ass. This is somebody who's lost things as a basic result of talking against the established powers. So I hear what Idris is saying, and I'm not even saying that. I'm not even saying that we need Idris. Can I be honest with you? In war, we need different types of people. I disagree with Idris, but we need Idris because we need people who can infiltrate those particular spaces. I hate the message he's given, but we need him to infiltrate those spaces because when it comes time to it, hopefully he should be on our side. And I'm not saying there's going to be a war or anything, but I'm saying in war, to move the boundary forward, there needs to be different types of battalions. Sometimes we need to infiltrate, okay? Sometimes we need people who are going to fight on the front line, or sometimes we need those people who are speaking up. Like, we need different battalions and different components of the army in order to move the agenda forward. So it just is still needed, right? It just is still needed. And so there is a part of what I'm saying, it's not that wrong of what he's saying, right? Because yes, but the fact of believing that it doesn't exist, no. What you're talking about is you ascending beyond the point, or sorry, let me say there's a space where you ascend to a point where you being black isn't recognized per se by white folk. Let me make this point as well. There's a part where there's an ascendancy where you're so good at what you do, you ascend to a point where white people are just like, yo, it's just Idris, right? But when you do something that they don't like, they will remind you that you're black again. You see, it's a blissful space to be in when you're doing whatever they want you to do, when you're not destroying status quo, when you're not calling them up, when you're not pulling them up anymore. Then you are in the status quo. But when you decide that something doesn't fit their agenda anymore, or you do something or you say something that doesn't fit their agenda anymore, they will remind you how black you are real quick. They'll remind you how quick you are that you're black. So you can be in that space where it's bliss, right? Because you have status, you have power, you have wealth, you're well known as Idris Elba. You're absolutely right. But the reality is, when you stop dancing the dance that they want you to dance, when you stop being amicable, when you say, do you know what, this is wrong, and I believe you guys to be wrong, that's when you're going to realize you black, and you blackity black, blackity black, black. So what I'm saying is, I understand what Idris is saying, and listen, Idris is not somebody who's, Idris is from the ends. Let me be honest with you. When we say ends, he's from the hood. He ain't no punk. You know what I'm saying? Like, we know that already. But you've got to a part in your echelon of your growth where you have to there's too much. The air is very thin where you at. So maybe you're forgetting a little bit. Maybe you're forgetting a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Right? Maybe you're forgetting that you're a little bit of where you can't escape you being black. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand, right? Let's get to John Boyega's words. But yeah, Chris Green just proved my point, which is that you stop putting black on that thing, and they reminded you, no, you black. Don't change the form. Don't not put your name. Don't not put the fact that you're black on that form. We need to know who you are before you get here, right? As it opened the doors for you to has it opened the doors for you now to get more business? No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. Okay. No, it hasn't. Okay, so let's get this part. I want to bring this. Okay, so let's get John Boyega's points that he brought up as well. Okay, so John Boyega's points that he said were this. He said, I think we should fixate on who is typecasting and putting actors in the boxes because of this, not on making weird adjustments for them. We continuously focus on what we have to do so they don't have to do this or that. Very worrying. We black, and that's that. And this is the thinking that I have that is alignment with John Boyega. Because what he's saying, okay, What he's saying here is that in this instant, when we look at when we look at obviously the situation, we want you to understand that the struggle that you're facing here isn't with self, it is with those who view you. It's not with you and you changing this and they'll stop abusing you. It is with the other person. They are the ones who right? You said you're a black actor. Okay, not that you're a black actor that is specializes in action films, or you specialize in Korean films, or you specialize only in this type of film. You didn't say that. You said you are a black actor, an actor who's black. If you want to put it that way, right? So in that instance, who typecasted you to play the gangster role? Who typecast you to play only the crackhead? Who typecasted you to wear a dress? Who typecasted you to play the ghetto man? Who typecast you to play the criminal? No one else but the film producers and those who are casting directors, them very self. You didn't cast yourself. You went for a different role and they put you in a different role. What do you expect? And if you applied only for the criminal role, that's you. Why didn't you apply for the head role? Right? So in this instance, in this instance, um, you know, we have to remind ourselves in this instance that the fight isn't with ourselves; it's with those who view us this way. You know, we aren't the problem here, right? We're not the problem. And you saying I'm no longer a black actor doesn't change how they view you. The reason why they've changed their view to you for you is because you bring them money. I don't think you understand this. Let me be real with you, right? The Bible says you can't serve God and you can't serve mammon. I think the reason why the Bible says can't serve God and serve mammon is because those are the two things that people usually serve, right? You either serve God or you serve mammon, right? And so mammon means money, the God of prosperity, money, yeah? So when we're talking about mammon in this instance, the thing that they respect about Idris I'm talking about structural power now. The thing that they love about Idris is you bring them money. This is why you're in the space you're in. I'm not saying that your talent isn't amazing. Your talent is amazing. Your talent is great, and that means that when you ascend onto the screen, you are so good at what you do. People buy into you. Absolutely right. I hear you. Absolutely right. I hear you. But the reality is, you bring money, and money talks. And if you do it hard enough, okay, you do it long enough, you bring enough money to them, they are going to allow you space and freedom to move on their platform however you want in some shape or form, right? Because you bring them what? Money. But there's a struggle to get to that place first, you know. There's a struggle for that. There's a struggle for that. And the and yeah, yes, you said it. You said it right there, Life Bodge. The reality is, Idris has ascended to that place, but what he's forgotten is the rest of us have not. So making a statement he's making is ignorant because we haven't ascended there, right? We haven't ascended to that place yet. We haven't. So you have to understand something, that whilst you've gone, we have not gone. So when you make a statement from on high in the mountains, it does not apply to the people at the bottom of the mountain. You telling me not to believe in racism when I can see it, how it's affecting me and how it's stopping me. Of course, I'm going to be angry because you're not making sense. Your vision and your perception and where you stand does not where I stand. It doesn't apply. I know he spoke for himself when he said it. He said it himself, and I agree. He did say it for himself, but it's not self though, because you're black. And that's the whole point. It goes back to that same thing. You can't just say this because you're black. If I say, oh well, you know what, race does not really affect me, and you're forgetting that all the other black people around you, it does affect them. So you can't just say it's just for me. That's why I'm saying that I get it. I agree. He's saying for himself solely. But the reality is that you're forgetting that you represent a whole community. You can't just say that. You can't just say that. You have a whole community who are hoping and riding on your dreams because we are the disenfranchised party. So when you do something, when you go into and this is the thing you have to remember as well. When you go into movies, we celebrate you, we shout you, we lift you up even more. How many of us get excited when we see a black person on Pop Idol or American Idol or X Factor, or we see one black person and we're gonna go, do you know what? Let's all support that black person because we understand how disenfranchised we are. So for you to stand at the top of the mountain and then say what you said without thinking that people at the bottom of the mountain haven't reached where you reach, we've got a problem. That's why we've got a problem. That's where we've got a problem. It's like when someone says, you know what, I personally, for me, I don't get stopped by the cops because, I'm a good citizen as a black person, I don't drive like a hoodlum. I don't do this, I don't do that. And it's like, no, broski. Just because you've ascended don't mean that others have not. So even though you're speaking for yourself, you were still speaking for the community. So that's why the comments by John Boyega had to hit. Because it's like, bro, what the heck? Why would you change yourself? In those instances. And also the one thing about this as well, like I said, is the people that love this are white folk. The people that say respect for Idris was white folk. It wasn't us. People that were saying they had a newfound respect for him was not us. It was white folk that were telling them, look at this tweet here. They call this woke. Look at this one. I'm a new Idris fan because for reasons beyond his great acting, the English actor rejects woke identity politics and wants to only be seen as the first Idris, not the first black of anything. We need more of this. Okay. Cool. Right? What you don't understand is being the first black is actually a beautiful thing. Being the first black person to do, the reason why there's an emphasis on being the first black this or that is because you are the first black. Do you know the magnitude of what you're saying? You're not, if you listen, when someone breaks a record, it's because they've beat something. If you say you don't want to be the first black so and so, you are now ordinary. I don't think you understand. You're just doing what normal people do. The fact is, when you be the first black, let's say for instance, I'm the first black YouTuber to reach 1 trillion subscribers on YouTube, right? I would take pride in that. One, because I'm the first black person, meaning I've had to because being black comes with adversity. We know the system. We know what we're seeing, right? We know what we're seeing. So when you are the first black person to do X, Y, and Z, it's like having the first black president. Was it overrated? I mean, some people might not agree with everything that the policies that he brought. But again, being the first black person has to be honored. He's done something that none of us have been able to do. Do you get what I'm saying? He's done something that no one else has been able to do. That's the whole point. When you're the first black person, it's like saying you're the first. It's like saying the first Ghanaian. If somebody said this, you're the first Ghanaian person to win a gold medal at the Olympics. You know, you know what I'm saying. So like we're saying, obviously, of course, you know, same here. When I can't lie to you, I would prefer um to have race because of the fact that we live in this particular world that we live in. But not everybody would agree. Um, yes, Elsa, that's the point I need to make. Thank you. That's the point I need to make. You know, first black shows a door is open and space is made. Precisely that. So you're part of the overall a change that's coming as well. Um, you know. So yes, those who were the first this and first that, it makes you proud because you know that someone else has gone before you and they had to triumph. I just watched Bill Russell. I just watched Bill Russell the other day. 11 championship. I said, what? I didn't even really know about this guy that well. Bill Russell as an NBA star? My God. And you listen to the testimonies of other black basketball players in this modern day and era and how they give him praise. So it's important, you know, it's very important that as black people that we get this, be able to have this aspect, first black this, first black that. Okay, great, fantastic. Because then we can celebrate it. And it means, like they said, the door that Elsa said, the door is open, and that means the rest of us can actually make it. Now we have somebody who's done it, the rest of us can go, we can do it too. You know? And my issue with this often this subject is that people think when they start making money, they're absolved of their blackness. No, you absolve the poverty that comes with blackness, and it's slightly different. You know what I mean? Like now you've reached a new class. There's certain things that wouldn't apply to you, absolutely, but you still Blake. Still Blake. They're gonna let you know you still Blake. You know what I mean? Because you see, and here's another thing that people don't realize as well. What white folk also want to bring into the table, such as our Caucasian counterparts, is this beautiful concept, right? Okay, let me show you. Um, let's see this part. This thing here. So Carl Benjamin, another white guy, said Idris Elba is getting it in response to what he said. What white people want to have you believe, okay, is that the reason why you are in the situation you're in is because you are not good enough. They refuse to take accountability for the system and the structure that actually does play a hand in making sure that we are in a disadvantage. So a lot of white people, they will love what Idris Elba said because it again points to the whole thing of the reason why you're at the bottom is because you're not good enough. Now, don't get it twisted, right? Your talent, your talent is going to take you places and it's going to beat the system. But there's going to be a lot of people whose talent who could have been, let's say, good, who needed to be exceptional in order to get where they get to. That's the biggest issue. When we compare ourselves to our counterparts, they can be good, they can be okay, they can be even bad, and they're gonna get in, and they're gonna get in. And then when we are good, we have to be exceptional. When you're exceptional, you have to be elite in order to reach the same places that they're reaching. And they will refuse to accept that notion, and they'll tell you it's because you're not good enough. If you were good enough, you would be able to do it. But there are many factors that come along the way that prevent people from actually trying to triumph. That's the reality. I'm not giving people excuses all the way, but what I'm saying is there is a system of structure that you are hindered and inhibited. You see what I'm saying? So the you saying let's change the fact we're not got black actors is actually helping them prove their point that you know what we see if they were good enough they would be here, but they ain't good enough. Now he actually did clear up his answers. I think he put up another tweet say to clear up his actual point that he made a couple of days ago, and he said this particular point as well. He said, there isn't a soul on this earth that can question whether I consider myself a black man or not. Being an actor is a profession, like being an architect. They're not defined by race. However, if you define your work by your race, that is your prerogative. I lie. But he's forgot that your race is important to the role you play. It's important. When you went to Ghana to go and build, what do you call it? To go and build a studio for Ghana. Of course, that's more to ethnicity rather than race. But the reason why they're going to accept you is because you're black. You understand that? The reason why they're going to accept and be happy in a different way. Now, of course, if a white person came in, they'll be happy. But I'm saying the joy that we're going to feel when you come over and said you're going to build something, it's a different type of joy. When you see somebody who looks like you doing great things. I don't get excited when I see a white person doing great things because they don't look like me and it doesn't represent me. Now, of course, I can take some inspiration from it, right? I can take some inspiration from it. But the reality is, when I look at the situation, all right, I'm inspired on a greater level when I see somebody like me doing it because I know that they've gone through the system and they've beat the system. They face some of the similar challenges that I face. Right? So in this instance, when he's talking about the situation, I hear him, but it's relevant. It's relevant for us as black people, uh, you know. So this soul on earth, I know, and I'm not questioning his blackness, by the way. His blackness is never to be in question. Listen, this is a black man. He's a real black man. I ain't playing with that brother. That brother's a black man. What I'm saying is we have to look at the fact that what John Boyega said is you are changing you instead of changing them. So are you really making an impact as you think you are? You know what I mean? If you're not making changes for them, if you're not forcing them into a change, that's the real question. All right, guys. I'm gonna leave it there. I think there was some good points made, and I think we've hit our peak there. I want to let you know as well. With race comes power, and that's the structure we live in. That's the patriarchy and white supremacy that we live in. With race comes a certain level of power. And so in this conversation, what's happening is we're talking about the fact that being black as a default, from the very beginning, when you start your race, you have been attributed certain attributes. You've been attributed certain powers within the structure of your society. And so in this particular aspect, we have to understand the different nuances that come, right? So we know the struggles that we're facing. And so what we want to see, I love that El said, we want to see reformation rather than you conforming. We want to see some reformation. That's what we want to see, right? And we want to see that. So change them. Don't let them change you, thinking that when you change you, it's gonna get you to where you're gonna get to. Because whether you put black actor on the list or not, you still gonna get those roles, Idris, because you've ascended. You still gonna get those roles. Chris Green is still there. Chris Green is still back there, and he's still not putting black actor on his card, and he ain't getting no roles because we don't know who he is. Now, I probably don't want to disrespect him. We should go and check. Maybe he's got a good, extensive CV. So if Chris Green, you watch this part, if any of your friends watch this part, I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'll go and look at your CV. You might have an extensive CV. All I'm saying is, compared to Idris, we don't know who you are. So in this instance, when he's saying about putting black actor on the list, you've now proved our point. When you don't put it on the list, they don't want you. So you're facing a system. Okay. All right, guys. We're gonna love you and leave you. I'm gonna go to the gym now. I'm gonna go to get a coffee and stuff like that as well. So, but you know what? We black round here, and we proud to be black, and we're gonna win being black. I'm not gonna change myself to win. I'm gonna be black. And let me say this as well. I want to say this as well. It's interesting because I remember when I was doing YouTube, and I was like, I want to make content that everybody can identify with. And sometimes you can, right? You really can do content that goes to everybody, but some people have to play your role. And it's going to be one of my videos I'm going to do later on, which is some of us just need to know what lane we stay in. Okay? And don't be afraid of it. I talk to black people, and I could talk to a mass of people, but my people right now, I need to talk to my black people. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like talking to my black people. I like Someone said, do I describe myself as a YouTuber or a black YouTuber? Depends on what context of conversation I'm in. Depends on what context of space I'm in. Again, I won't need to say black YouTuber because they will see me as a YouTuber that is black. That's the whole point. I don't even need to say it because it will happen to me. They will tell me I'm a black YouTuber. You know what I'm saying? But in my instance, it doesn't make a difference to what role I'm doing. My position of YouTuber it's not affected by my race in this instance. Where he's doing a role where he's acting a role of a character. Your race is important. If James Bond is white and you're now black, it's a problem. You feel me? So you black, it is what it is. I'm African, it is what it is. You know what I mean? Exactly, I said, and that's why I said, look, you no matter where you go, no matter where you go, they're gonna see that. And when you enter white spaces, you'll realize they make these distinctions between you because they're little comments that are being made. See, if you be, and my last point before I get out of it, my last point is this. Adeniki said victim mentality. Where's the victim in this? I don't know where you're coming from, Odeniki, but it sounds like you've got some problems that we need to deal with. There was nothing victim about what we said. What we said is we're proud to be black and we want to be black. That's what we said. There was nothing victim about this at all. So I don't know where you've come in with the victim mentality. And I'm shouting, I'm pointing you out because you're trying to do some bull crap, and I don't like that bull crap you're doing. Nobody said we're a victim. None of us have said we're a victim. What we said is we're facing different challenges and we're proud to be black. So I don't know where that came from. So I'm gonna stop you right there. And if you come with some nonsense again, we don't mind checking you right there. We don't mind checking you because we're no fools around here. You understand? Yeah. Back to my point I was gonna make, which is, when you go into work, they will let you know you Blakely Blake. Okay. So it gets like that. But what we are looking for as a community, this is why I said I don't want to alienate Idris at all. What we are looking for as a community is that we're moving the barriers forward. Are we moving the barriers forward? That's what we want. Absolutely, Lydia. The truth is, you cannot not if it's not going to be color of the skin, it's going to be something else. You understand? It'll be your features. It'll be your features that will be a problem. So so we got to understand that. So, but yes, what we want to understand is that we're moving the barriers forward. That's what we're talking about. We want to move the barriers forward. I'm not looking necessarily to be accepted by white folk. That's just reality. What I'm saying is I want us as black people to be proud of our blackness. And this is my point. I lost my point when I was talking to Adeniki when he was saying the nonsense they were saying or whatever they were saying. Because, those people that like to invest your space and come and say crap. In this aspect, right? In this aspect, when you are, let's quote unquote say, when you start touching on black culture, and of course black culture, when you start talking about black culture, and of course black culture is, again, once more, it's not a monolith, as Adeniki was saying. It's not a monolith. But when you touch on specific parts of black culture, white folk gonna let you know that you black at that point. They're gonna stereotype you. They're gonna make jokes. Because regardless of whether you want to leave it or not, unfortunately, the system that you're in, that's the game that they play. So unless you're outside of the matrix, this is the game that we're playing. And we're going to be proud of our blackness, and we're going to use it to go to the top. Because we're resilient, we're strong, we're determined, we're intelligent, we are creative. That us as black folk, I wouldn't want to have it any other way. I'll be honest with you. Wouldn't have it any other way. So we're going to move this barrier forward. We're going to move those things forward, and we're not going to underplay some of the great people that have gone before us who've done great work. The fact that I'm even on YouTube talking to you guys is a monument of what the people before me and what our forefathers and foremothers have done so that I can even be here. We always talk about Martin Luther King, but there were people before Martin Luther King who were fighting as well. There were people before Martin Luther King who were doing great work, before Malcolm X were doing great work too. The fact that I'm sitting in front of you on my YouTube, having the space to talk to you, is a testament of what those people have done beforehand. Do you understand? Their fight has not gone in vain. And so our fight here is to use our creative talents and our skills and to be able to infect the industries. But it doesn't mean I have to lose the essence of what I am. No, no, no. I'm going to bring that blackness to you. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to bring that blackness into there. And we're going to take over. You know what I mean? All right, guys. I'm off. I got to go to the coffee shop. I got to go to the gym. I appreciate you guys, honestly, man. And shout out to you guys who got involved with the conversation. Share this with somebody else who needs to hear this. We appreciate you guys. Honestly, stay locked, stay loaded. We'll see you again very, very soon. Much love and appreciation.